Good Sunday morning to you all, YouTube. Here with you at the workshop once again, and I'm here to ask the age-old question: am I losing my mind or what? I know I've been here before. You can see the stereo stand with components are there in front of the camera. I mean, you can see my hand. You know what I'm saying. The reason I asked that question is because I tried this before with the three components on that first, second shelf, whatever you want to call it, top shelf, second shelf. And it did not fit. Now, for some reason, it fits, and I don't understand why. But I went through a lot to get here. I went to all the trouble of drilling extra holes in the side pieces to move the that second shelf down, which I did 2 inches, just 2 inches, and it left such a huge gap there. And I thought, well, that's more than 2 inches, and it was. It was actually over 2.5 inches, almost two and 3/4 inches. And I thought, well, if I moved it down, and I was measuring from the top of this, or I should say the bottom of that white piece is how I was doing it, to the top of the shelf, and that's how I was determining how much space, additional space was there, because I knew I had moved the holes down exactly 2 inches. So when I did that, like I said, if there's half to 3/4, close to 5/8, we'll say, inches, and you can see there is that much space in here. Maybe not 5/8, but there is at least a ½ inch there, I would say. And I don't have a rule here that I can show you that, but especially on that side. Now, that's another thing. I've noticed there's more of a gap on that side than there is on this side. Don't know why that is either. But suffice to say, I have taken this shelf, this second shelf down, off, and remounted it several times. I remounted it to the holes I drilled, the 2-inch down holes. And like I said, there was quite a bit of a gap there, and I thought, well, that's just way too much. And I had considered drilling holes closer in between, like 1 inch. And then I got to looking at it, like I said, and measuring it, and it was, like I said, it was over 2 inches down, which to me said that should have fit before. And you can see it does. And it is in the original holes. Why? I don't know. I can only guess. I'm going to say that maybe, and this might apply, but I don't think I've even loosened the top one up. But I thought maybe loosening up the shelf, putting it in different places, I might have placed it down as low as it could go. You know what I'm saying? There is some play in the holes themselves on the uprights. And there is some holes in plastic. I mean, they're pretty tight, but there is some space to move just a hair. And I made sure when I put this back together, because I didn't want this to mess up, I just pushed those in loosely on the second shelf. Then I stacked all the components on it to make sure they were going to fit, number one, before I tightened them up. And also that I wanted to tighten them up with that in there so that they would remain in that position. And I did. And so anyway, let's make a long story short, which is really getting hard to do these days. This is the way it's going to be. I have yet to add the back, which I'm going to do around that bottom part. That back will encompass all the area you see there, but open behind the basket and stuff like that. It will basically go from this shelf to that shelf, the bottom and the back, and it will also be on the metal part on the outsides, each side there, and it will be screwed in. Now this, I think, will allow the shelf to stiffen up quite a bit. Again, it's okay just sitting there, but once you start moving it around a little bit, you can see it is a little bit shaky. So, like I said, I think that shelf, or that backing, and it's going to be 1/4 inch MDF board, is what it will be. And it will be screwed in well as far as often. I'm not going to put real big screws in it, but it's going to have, so it won't move back and forth like that anymore, I hope. That's the plan anyway. I was going to go all up the whole back, and I thought, well, I really need places for the cord to come out and things like that, and I'd rather not do that. So I just decided to put it from that second shelf to the bottom shelf, and, like I say, all the way out to the edge of the uprights on each side, and that will make it pretty steady, I think. In addition, that gives it some backing for the albums when I put albums down there, and that will allow it to basically just be working better. In fact, I have also thought about, and I'm not really sure yet if I'm going to do it, I don't really care for stacking albums against poles like that. That will put pressure on them and make them bend certain ways, and you really don't want that. So I'm thinking of putting pieces of the same MDF board in on this side, on each side, to where it's more like a box where they would be sitting in. So I don't know, I haven't decided for sure on that, but that's a possibility as well. But again, I do thinking I am thinking about putting, whoops, sorry. That'll make it shake. I am thinking about putting a brace across the top to help with the, leave room for the cables, and yet, if I use like an X brace at the top, that might work out pretty good, and that way it leave room for the cables, and also it would put some bracing on there. I just don't like how wobbly it is. Obviously, with the shelf moving, it's even more so. But did I say a shelf missing? I meant to say a shelf missing there, and I think I might have said moving. It's funny. Everybody that does YouTube like this, and they say things like that, and then they really don't think about them until they catch them in editing, and by that time it's a little too late. But everybody does that. I think you're thinking of trying to say what you want to say, but at the same time you're worried about the camera, where it's pointed, things like that, and you want to make sure, oh, that's good. But whatever it is, it happens to everybody that does YouTube. I don't know why. Anywho, also, you may be able to see there's a box there, there's a box there. Now the box we've already talked. It's a box there. That's another thing. I can't see where my hand's pointing unless I look at the screen. But there's a box there. That is the extra cassette deck. The what's the name of it? Not realistic. Whatever it is, the Optimus realistic deck. I got to get that open. That is my extra shelf. That's the shelf that I was going to use instead of this if I hadn't got this all redone. But that's going to go. It's going to be used in here for more storage. I have an idea. Once I get that far, I'll show you what I'm talking about. But suffice to say, for now, this is the way it's going to be, and I'm going to basically take all the components off, take and turn that upside down to where we can put our board on, or at least get a measurement or whatever we need to do for the MDF board. It's over there. I see it sitting there. So that's what we've got to do and get that going. I don't know that I'll get it done today. I've got a couple of kits to make up and stuff like that. We've gotten hit pretty hard with the kits here lately. So anywho, that's that. And like I said, let me get this all cleared off, and we'll go from there. Hi, good evening, YouTube. Here with you at the well, I shouldn't say at the bench. I'm at in the workshop, but that's is what it is, I guess. I'm basically sitting at the bench, so I've got my back turned to the bench. Obviously, this is pretty much done. I'm going to zoom in if I can. I don't know how good a picture I'm going to get out of this, but you can see, if I can get the zoom to go the right way. There it is. There, this is the top. You can see, let's see if I got my finger here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws across the top. And if we go down, 1, 2, and 3. Now I only put 3 in on the sides because I put those in first, and actually that stiffened up everything just good. And then across the bottom, if we look all the way down here, if I can get myself down there, there's 5 screws going across there as well, and then there's 3 screws on the other side. Now my plan is, I haven't loaded it down with components yet, but I'm going to do that. And if it, let's get you out of zoom here. I'm going to do that, and if it's as stable as it is right now, which it should be, then I think we're okay like we are. And if it does have a little more shakiness to it, I can add 2 more screws on each side in between those, and that will put 5 going down, up and down, and 5 across as well. So I think that's the way to do that. But like I say, I'm not trying to get out of work, but I figure if you don't need them, you don't need them. For one thing, these are screwed into metal on the side here, so that makes a big difference. And those little, you can see let's see if I can get you up there. Yeah, you can see that. You can see the thickness of the shelf. It's not as thick as this metal is, over here. That's 3/4 of an inch wide there, and that's, if it's a 1/2 inch, I think it might be a 1/2 inch. But like I said, all the screws have gotten as close to the middle of that shelf as I can, so they go into as much meat of the shelf as they can, and they seem to be, they grab really good. I put them in there with the drill, and the drill got a lot of torque to it, and they seem to bog it down pretty good, so I'm going to say they're going to work pretty good. Now, if ever there comes a time after using this and moving around, you guys know how it is when you move things around shelves like that, they tend to get a little loose, and if it does, I can always add those screws later. I bought a box of 100 of those from Home Depot, and it's kind of a funny story on that. I ordered them last night, yesterday, whatever you want to call it, and Home Depot anymore, they'll ship you whatever you buy just about, and it doesn't cost you anything. So I always take advantage of it because there's no sense of going out. Well, anyway, this morning when I got up, I usual, I turned on the computer, did everything, and I had a notice from Home Depot that the screws had been delivered, and there was a picture of them. You could tell it was dark out, because I leave my porch light on overnight, and that was the only light there. You could see them there sitting at the door in a bag. So they delivered them right from the local store here, and I thought that was kind of neat. So I had them early the next morning. That beats Amazon even. So anyway, let me go ahead and load this thing up with some components, and we'll turn it around, take a look at it, and I'll do a little shake test, see, make sure it's working. Also, the other thing I'm not going to show you, but it's going to be up on the bench very, very shortly. The other turntable arrived in the mail this morning. Well, actually, it was this afternoon. It arrived at FedEx. They set it on the porch sideways. But, it didn't, nothing was harmed. It was packed pretty good, so I was glad of that. But like I said, I let me get these done, and I want to go over that. There's some things about that we'll talk about later, probably when it's on the bench. There's no sense in even worrying about it till we can take a look at it. And I don't want to set that all up and do that right now. It's a little dark in here. I've only got the overhead light on. Obviously, when I took all the shelves down from the bench, I took the lights down as well. So I don't really have any other lights I can rig up a light if I need to, but like I said, this is plenty of light for showing what we're doing here. So let me get those loaded up and turn that shelf around, and we'll see what it looks like. Alright, well there you can see the, I won't say the finished product, but there's what it looks like with the all the components on that shelf. And as you can see, it looks pretty good. Now let me get up here and I'll shake it a little bit. I gotta make sure I'm in the frame when I do that. Let me just put you right there. How's that? There's a little shake to it, but overall, it's very stiff. I'm very happy with that. I mean, you push it like that before, you guys remember it would go back and forth. Now it goes a little, wherever you push it, and then it comes right back. So it's much more stable. And I'm very happy with that. So I think that's going to do that. Again, like I said, if I do have any problems with it later on, after moving it around, things like that, I can always put those extra 2 screws on each side, and I'm sure that would cure any problems that I did have. But again, I'm very happy, very pleased with the way this turned out. And the next thing I'm going to be doing is cleaning the bench off. I know you can't see it because it's pointing the other way. But I'm going to clean off this section over here that I usually clean off to do that. And I've asked Bob, y'all know Bob, what I should do first. I give him the option on what I should look at first. And he suggested the amplifier because we don't know if it even works. And he said, take a known piece of equipment, which I do have some equipment here that I can test with it, components I should say, and that do work. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to hook one of those up to it, make sure it works, and we'll go from there. So and his next suggestion was to do the tuner, because we don't know about the tuner either. The tuner itself said either low audio or no audio. I can't remember what it said. I'd have to look at the picture again. But I think, it was a case of people not knowing what a tuner was. I think they thought it was a radio. And, anybody that uses audio components like this knows the tuner doesn't have a regular audio output. The volume control, things like that. So that should have been the first clue when you were trying to look at it. Anyway, and if that works, then we're going to tackle the middle component there, which is the tape deck. Now we know it has problems. So that's the deal. We're going to put that up on the bench after all that and see if we can't basically troubleshoot that and see if we can basically figure out what the problems is there and correct those if possible. And we'll go from there. Once we get all that done, the next thing will be to do the turntable. And like I said, I'll be able to explain some things about it when we get to that point. But suffice to say right now, it's going to be a good one. It's in pretty good shape. Very pleased about that part of it. And like I said, the guy packed it well enough where the FedEx couldn't or didn't damage it or anything like that. And so it's got some things that problems with it that I'm going to have to use the other one for parts, I believe. But they're not anything to do with actual playing of records and things like that. It's the base it sits on, things like that. So you'll see all that in due time. So that's going to do this part of this, and I'm going to probably post this evening and maybe set it for viewing tomorrow, and we'll go from there. But like I said, this was my main thing, and you can see down here, let me get you down a little bit so you can see better. Down here, well, it's dark down here, but you can see that's going to be a perfect place to put your records. The records are going to have the basically that outermost pole to lean against. Now I still haven't decided on whether or not to make a side piece for each of those sides and give the record something fully to sit on. So if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. wherever that comes up and being. So, but like I said, that will allow me to store records under there and do that. And I don't have the little basket under there. Let me put that under there real quick. Let me get you out of the way just a hair here. See if I can slide over here and do this without getting up. There you go. Again, that's that basket's great, not great, but I don't even know if you can see it, to tell you the truth. But again, it would serve to hold some tapes or whatever, and that would be good. And it still leaves plenty of room for the albums to go in there as well. So very pleased with the way that's come out, and I'm happy I ended up converting this using the 3D printer as opposed to using that metal shelf that is sitting right behind this. You can't see it, but it's still in the box, obviously. I did manage to get the Optimus cassette deck out and got it over there on the shelf. I probably, after doing this, I'll go ahead and put that up on the bench and we'll take a look at it. Now, I don't think it'll be hard because it said no power. Those are usually the easiest things to fix in my estimation. So that's that. Alright, well, like I said, that's going to do me. I don't want to keep belaboring the fact. You guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see ya.